Hey, Soldier 7 here, and this video I wanted to talk about the comparison of Resident Evil 4 the original and Resident Evil 4 the remake. Yes, as you know, last October I did a review on the Resident Evil 4 remake, and earlier this year I did a 20-year anniversary for the Resident Evil original. So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about, and I may have mentioned it or not in some previous videos, but whether if I have or not, here it goes. Okay, so in comparison, what do I prefer? Out of the two Resident Evil 4 games, which one do I prefer? Do I prefer the Resident Evil original or the Resident Evil remake? Which one do I think is better? Now, anyone who knows me probably already knows the answer. And the answer is Resident Evil 4, the original. Now, of course, that isn't to say I think that Resident Evil 4, the remake, was bad. I just didn't think it was as good as the original. Now, granted, being that said, I'm going to do a little bit of comparison because there were certain things that were in the original, which is still my favorite out of the franchise, and better than the remake, but there were still things in the original that I liked but didn't like, and at the same time there were certain things in the remake that, yes, I didn't like, but I liked. I know that sounds a little backwards or anything, but here it goes. Just to compare the two, I think Resident Evil 4 the remake was still good, it just wasn't good as the original, and in comparison, they did do some different things, which I take as both as a good thing and a bad thing. Now, just to talk about the remake a little bit more, because I did a review on it last October, like I said, it's been a while since I've seen that video, so I don't remember if I said if I thought the original was better or not, but either way, I was thinking about doing a video like this anyway, eventually, because Resident Evil 4, the original, is my favorite, and I felt like doing a comparison video one day, you know. I don't remember if I said anything about those in my previous videos about these, but then again, I don't go back and watch my videos every time I do a video, so yeah. But just to get down to brass tacks, yeah, in the comparison, Resident Evil 4 the original or Resident Evil 4 the remake, obviously my choice is Resident Evil 4 the original. But that doesn't mean I don't like Resident Evil 4 the remake. I just don't think it was as good as the original. I think the remake did some good things. It was still a good game. It just wasn't good as the original. However, being that said, let's try to compare the two and talk about some good things and bad things that occur in both. For example, like when it came to the Resident Evil remakes in general that we've been getting over the last few years, I kind of don't like how they changed some of the storylines, which is what I kind of didn't like. Because when I thought because in my opinion on the remakes, I always think that they should stick to the original storyline, just give us like a different type of gameplay and mechanics and so forth, more that was more similar to like Resident Evil 4, the original, or Resident Evil 5, whatever, that sort of thing, but still keep that survival horror concept, you know, because I know a lot of the hardcore fans, the older fans. I mean, I'm a Resident Evil fanboy, but like but like you have the survival horror camp, you know. And I get where those guys are coming from, and I'm not saying they should take that away, even if they make the mechanics more like the original Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 5. But just not to get off topic. I know I'm just sort of ranting at this point because I try to work on this video a couple times, and I had some trouble with the microphone, and I guess I just kind of got a little frustrated, but still, I'm going to do this video because I've been wanting to do it for a while. But yeah, Resident Evil 4, the original, I think is better. There were certain things, sure, I didn't think were flawless. They had its flaws, but it's still a good game. The remake, although not as good as the original, but it was still a good game, and there were certain things about the remake that I kind of want to talk about that I probably talked about in my review from last October, but I'm going to say that while comparing it to the original. And that is, in the remake, because I remember, and not just to keep ranting, but I also recall, I think I did a video about a remake for Resident Evil 4 before we even knew we were going to get a remake for Resident Evil 4. I think it was back in 2020. I think. I don't exactly remember. I think it was around 2020 when I did the video. At that time, there was no idea of a Resident Evil 4 remake. Sure, it was talked about, I'm sure, but I even did the video and got some comments in the video saying it's never going to happen. Well, it did happen, and how did it hold up compared to the original? While I would say still a good game, definitely not as good as the original. I'm just going to say that, bottom line. Now, there are certain features in the remake that I think are interesting and so forth that I will talk about, but there were certain things that they left out that I didn't like. Now, obviously, we know I didn't like the facts that they change parts of the storyline. I think they should have kept to the original storyline, the storyline to the original. I think they should have just did that, but just add like more features and whatnot. And I think that's what the video I made back in 2020, I think that's what I sort of talked about, if they did, or if they were going to do this, which they did. And like, for example, we all know that in the original, I played the original for GameCube, so I didn't notice it right away, but I did play the original for PS3 and PS4 in later generations, later gen consoles. You do have special features in both, like for example, you have separate ways, which is in both the original and the remake. You had Assignment Ada in the original, but not in the remake. In the GameCube version, which was the one I played back in the day, when I played the original, I didn't play the PS2 version. So the GameCube version didn't have separate ways, but when I played it on the PS3 and then again on the PS4, I came across it, and I was like, yeah. So they have both of that in both games, but in the remake they don't have Assignment Ada, which I kind of don't know why. I didn't like the changes, and like I said, the change to the storyline I didn't really like. They should have just kept to the original storyline, but with just more features and whatnot. Like, yes, for example, in the remake, you have separate ways, just like in the original, you have separate ways. But in the original, you had Assignment Ada, at least for the PlayStation versions, whereas here in the remake, you don't. And I think that was, kind of ridiculous, because I enjoyed playing it, and I thought it was, a good time killer. Even if it wasn't that special, I still thought it was a good time killer. Another thing I think they should have done with the remake, which I think it had great potential for them to do, I think Capcom kind of dropped the ball when they did this, was that not only should they have added Assignment Ada, but I think they should have given another DLC, which didn't involve you playing Ada, but involved you playing Luis. I think it would have been interesting for them to have added a feature where you got to play as Luis, And you got to see his side of the story when he wasn't busy helping out Leon or helping out Ada. I think it would have been interesting to see a small campaign, dedicated to him. It could have taken place, before Resident Evil 4, or it could have taken place in between, when he's running around doing his thing and he's not talking to Leon or talking to Ada or helping them out or whatnot. He's like just doing his own thing, dealing with his own stuff, because as we know, no spoiler alerts, forgive me, but as you know, they do explain this a little bit more in the remake, which I will give them credit for because it was probably a good idea. He talks about more how, he wants to do right. He doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. And so it would have been interesting to see, somewhat of a campaign mode like Separate Ways or Assignment Ada, which was only in the original Assignment Ada. But it would have been interesting to see one of those, but where you just play as Luis, at least in the remake, where he goes around, doing that. What would have been the whole concept? I don't know, because in the original, according to from what I understand, when we are first introduced to Luis, he talks about how he used to be a cop in Madrid, and he doesn't really go into too much feature from what I remember playing the original. And granted, I played the original many times, but so forgive me if I don't remember every single thing about Luis's background in the original, but I think in the remake they do talk about that a little bit more. He was associated with Umbrella, and he was, a little more involved. So yeah, I think that was something that they should have done, was give him his little campaign mode like they did with Separate Ways. I also think they should have added Assignment Ada, and honestly, I don't think they should have changed the storyline. Although, to be fair, in the remake and Separate Ways, they do talk a little bit more about, Ada working with Wesker, which she does in both versions. You do see that a little bit in the original when you have Assignment Ada, but we don't, but it doesn't go into too much detail, whereas in the remake, it does kind of do that, especially in Separate Ways. We do see that a little bit more. So that was probably a good thing to do, but still, I feel like, they just kind of dropped the ball with not having Luis. But not to get off topic, to just remain on Separate Ways for a minute. I still think it was good that they went into a little more detail about what Ada was doing with Wesker when she was of Ada working with Wesker. I think it was good that they kind of went into a little more detail, and of course, eventually in the end, she kind of turns against Wesker when she kind of realizes what he wants to do with the leftover research or the work, or what was being done by the Los Illuminados. He kind of wants to take over that and use that power for himself. And Ada kind of grows a conscience and is kind of like, yeah, I think this guy's crazy. He shouldn't get a hold of this. So yeah, there was that. So I did like that they did at least do that in the remake, but I still don't think it was good as the original. Then again, granted, call me biased. I mean, the original is always going to have a place in my heart, because when I played it for the GameCube back in the day, I would just play it nonstop. I played it a hell of a lot more than I played the remake. Yes, I played the remake many times. Some of the special features that they do have, like with your wardrobe, your outfits and whatnot, which some of them give you special abilities, like with Ashley, she gets the knight armor and stuff like that. And that's all fine and dandy and whatever. I thought that was okay. It was very helpful on certain occasions, especially on certain difficulties. But really, I just all didn't really care for it too much. Don't get me wrong, I think it would have been interesting to see more outfits and so forth. I think they could have just did that. Like maybe customize all characters, like customize Leon, customize Ada, customize Ashley, customize Luis in different ways. Kind of more like, not just customize uniforms, maybe even try out, like, yeah, have those available. Like, yeah, like, for example, like Leon's old Raccoon City Police Department uniform, and then like have like in the original, Ada was able to switch from like the red dress to like this black technical outfit, whereas in the remake she's like just like wearing like she's just wearing a red sweater with black boots, black latex boots or leather boots, whatever. And that was okay, but you also get to unlock, her old red dress from the original, which is okay. And like I said, not to rant about it, but a part of me feels like maybe there's a possibility they could have tried just like letting you customize your own hat and whatnot. Like you want to put a certain hat on Leon, a certain hat on Ada, a certain hat on Luis, certain hat on Ashley or whatnot, or even on Wesker. Not that you don't have that to a certain extent. It's just like, with the sunglasses and everything you do, but it's just like, and yeah, you do get, the headwear and stuff, but like, maybe like customize, like, maybe like have them wear certain shirts, special shirts for them, special pants for them, or special shoes for them and whatnot, So I don't know. That may not sound like too much of a thrill, but I don't know. I'd say it would have been worth a try. And I know I'm just going on a rant at this point, for the comparisons. Another thing I do want to talk about is the mercenaries mode. Now, the mercenaries modes are very different. I still say the original is better, definitely. The mercenaries mode for the remake is good, but it's not that good. Like, for example, even though the mercenaries mode for the original was probably a little bit more harder, which was really irritating, but at the same time, it also felt more rewarding when you succeeded. So there's that. So, yeah, and not only that, if you get all 5 stars with in the original, with all the characters in the original, you unlock that special weapon where that plasma rifle or whatnot, where if you just like hold onto the button, then release, and like it just sprays out and whatnot, and pretty much takes anything down, and even get some merchandise for you, like stuff hanging in a tree and whatnot. So there was that, but whereas in the remake, I think you just get a revolver, which, don't get me wrong, I did unlock and I did use it to my advantage, and while it was good, but the plasma rifle was way better. I think it was a way better concept, and not only that, I think the maps in the original were better. Yes, the original for the mercenaries mode may have been a little more harder, but it was definitely more rewarding when you got those 5 stars. Whereas in the remake, not so much. So yeah, that's what I have to say about it, and yeah. So just to come down to brass tacks, I think Resident Evil 4 the remake was good, but I don't think it was as good as the original. And I think I just kind of narrowed it down. I didn't like the fact that they didn't have all the features in the remake like they did in the original, like Assignment Ada and so forth. Granted, it may not have been something special, but for what it was worth, it was still a good time killer, so I still enjoyed it. And not only that, I just feel like when it came to the remake, I think they should have like not only add Assignment Ada in it, but like, you know, we had separate ways, but you know, maybe give like Luis his little campaign mode just to see like his side of the story when he's not, you know, working with Leon or Ada or whatnot, and he's not talking to them and helping them out. Like, kind of see more like what he's doing while things are going on, or it could just take place right before. I think that would have been an interesting concept. I think that could have had great potential. And I think, yeah, for some reason, Capcom for not doing that. I think they kind of dropped the ball for not doing that. So, yeah, I think in my personal opinion, I think Capcom really really, sorry. But I do think, you know, Capcom really dropped the ball when they didn't do that. When all they just gave us was separate ways. And not only that, not to go back to Mercenaries mode, what I also think they should have did was make the Mercenaries mode online, like multiplayer co-op. I think I would have liked that, kind of like in Resident Evil 5. Not to get off topic about Resident Evil 5, but one of my favorite multiplayer versions of Resident Evil 5 was the Mercenaries mode. Yeah, Team Slayer, Team Survivor, those were good, even though I had my issues with those. But yeah, but I could get in that too another time. But yeah, just to end the video right here. It's been going on quite a while, over 20 minutes. Yeah, in the two, both good games, but the original is better in my opinion. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for right now. This is Soldier 7. Take care.